Hello everybody, again, here we're in Hannover Messe. We're here with Madhu from Dell. Madhu, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Give us a brief introduction about your background, how you got to lead the Edge portfolio at Dell.
Thank you, Lucian. Thanks to be here. I'm a enterprise solutions architect and a domain architect for manufacturing, focused on Edge portfolio and solutions within Dell. My background is pretty much from a manufacturing and industrial sector area. I've worked from being an automation engineer to a management consultant, working with Gartner and Rockwell Automation in my past life. So the way I became the lead for portfolio of solutions architecture in Dell is Dell essentially started a group where they started developing products and solutions primarily focused on Edge. And this Edge is around manufacturing, retail, energy, and smart cities, different areas over the Industry 4.0 specifications. So I was primarily hired to lead these solutions, right? And to support the technical folks within Dell, within the group, who are primarily coming from a compute and infrastructure and connectivity standpoint of view. How do I bring the domain expertise in building these solutions specifically focused for manufacturing?
Got it. Thank you so much for the introduction there. Now,
Thank you.
We're talking about Edge solutions, and maybe we give a little bit of overview why manufacturing sector should care about Edge computing. First off, right, we had PLCs, we had Edge MIs, and how is this version different than the previous version, right? You know, as a Gartner, you may have different reason why that was labeled that way and stuff like that.
Wonderful, great question, Lucian. So I feel Edge is not new, right? So we are Edge computing now, we talk about from a perspective of smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, but when we look back, right, Industry 1.0, when we are starting to manufacture something using steam and water, it's all Edge. There is nothing like an IT, right? It's all Edge. Industry 2.0, when we are doing mass production, right? Even then, it was all Edge, right? It was, people would make decisions at the Edge, they would sell from the Edge, they would produce at the Edge, the process is defined at the Edge, they will manage, monitor people, process, and any operational technologies at the Edge. Industry 3.0, when the PLC came on, right? Sensors, actuators, and databases came during the Industry 3.0.
The historians database.
The historian, exactly. The time series databases were invented. During this time, it's also Edge, right? That came in 1970. So before Industry 4.0, which is almost 45 years or 40 years later, right? 2015 is where the first coining of the term Industry 4.0 came in as part of the World Economic Forum. Before that, there were some improvements done by Smart Manufacturing Leadership Council in 2013. They're talking about the concepts, but 4.0 essentially came in play here in Germany, came from Germany, and was presented in World Economic Forum. But the gap between Industry 3.0 and 4.0, something wonderful happened, which is IT, right? IT started evolving. IT was there before, but it was never in comparison to an OT. OT was always at the Edge, right? Whether we talk about Siemens, whether we talk companies like Rockwell Automation, they were the premier organizations that were very well regarded from a branding standpoint of view. Then the IT came in, and you know what happened after 20, 30 years. Even when IT started evolving till early 90s, even before the internet, their revenues were still below the OT companies. Right? The moment the IT started evolving, they actually evolved so much that they overtook OT, operational technologies. Not only overtook, but they sort of brought the primary element of what the manufacturers would look at, whether it is cost efficiencies, operational efficiencies, right? In terms of user experience and things like that. IT has brought all that, right? Not only did it brought that, it became a business partner. Not just as an information technology infrastructure, it became a business partner to drive the growth of the organizations. Then the industry, during this time, cloud was also came into picture, right? The hyperscalers, whether it's Microsoft, Amazon's, they all, brought in great ideas, great solutions for manufacturing. Industry 4.0 came in after, right? So now, if you just look at Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0, it's still edge, right? But what happened during the time is when the customers started looking for efficiencies, they started look towards the IT, they started look towards the cloud, right? So now people are looking back when from edge computing standpoint of view, hey, now we are talking about edge computing and we are talking about bringing back this distributed computing, which we are more comfortable with, right? So all the trends now indicate that edge computing is essentially going to double in the next 2 to 3 years, right? The adoption rate. From whether it is from a National Association of Manufacturers survey or whether it is from analyst surveys, whether it is Gartner or IDC, everybody projects that the edge computing is going to be more than double, some of them indicate. So that's what my point of view is, edge has always been there, edge computing has always been there. Now it's gaining back the traction and giving a new terminology, new term for it to essentially separate it from cloud.
Understood. Thank you for that and that historical perspective. And just I heard you IT and OT these worlds, and when I think of Dell, right, I think of coming from the IT perspective.
World.
I think PCs, thinking the servers. Maybe give the audience some use case, some example of this edge computing, how you see it today, and why the appetite of companies like Dell or HP or others that may be in the...
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this is also great. So when we think about edge compute, right, I'll essentially give an example of a use case. We also do Dell on Dell, right? Before we talk about edge computing, what we are trying to showcase from the compute and storage and what it is, right? We also try to do that in our own factories, right? It's it's not abnormal, like every other company, solution vendor, they'll try to project it on it. For us, edge is where data is created, right? We want to process the data where it is created and to showcase the value, right? Sure. And also Dell, from our Dell perspective, it is always the value behind it. The value behind is how do we advance human progress, right? Edge is where all the people reside. The people who are actually making the product and the process real, that is where the people are, so right? How do we advance that? And that is in relation to that. And I'll give you an example now of a use case in relation to edge, what we have done. There are lots of use cases, pretty much every use case. You can enable edge analytics using AI, ML to provide some sort of an automation, human to machine collaboration, machine to machine collab, all that is edge. I won't go in there. I'll talk about where the people, process and technology play a role at the edge and why it is required at the edge, right? Process surveillance is an example of a use case that we have actually implemented in our one of our factories. It's an assembly line where we assemble our own laptops, right? What process surveillance includes is a computer vision, right? Hundreds of cameras, right? Per production line, we have double-digit cameras. We need to observe the process because people are involved in assembling the process. There are cobots that are working with the humans. There are AGVs that are supplying the material to these lines, right? As well as there is the telemetry data that is coming from sensors, RFID readers, and PLCs separately. All of this data need to be combined to provide a real-time alert or a notification or a recommendation using predictive analytics, so that the operators or the people who are doing the action have that information in hand. Whether, for example, the cycle time to produce a unit has a particular benchmark. And if it falls within that benchmark, how do I fix that in real time so that it comes back to the normal? So the number of units that are produced in that production line comes back to the normal or within the range that is expected by the end of the day to meet the demand, right? That needs to be done closer to real time.
Sure.
If a person is having a health issue, ergonomical issue, we want to capture that as part of the time frame and say, okay, there is something happening with this person, right? Either he needs additional training or it is a health hazard, right? We want to identify in real time so others are not impacted and do not cause a disruption, not just from a perspective of the human, of the process, but also human well-being, right? The well-being of that ergonomics is very important. So that needs to be captured. the performance, whether it's related to a particular product or a process, KPIs, right? Whether we call it overall equipment efficiency of cobots or the conveyors or overall process efficiency in relation to a particular product, that needs to be informed in real time so we know we are meeting the customer perfect order index. The moment, because we are custom to order, customer places an order, we promise him we'll deliver it in so and so time, so we need to meet that, right? In order to meet that, we need to capture the information as the product is being built. Right? All of that is a real edge use case that we actually implemented to ensure that we are meeting the benchmarks and the customer satisfaction while ensuring the people who are working on that production line are, safe.
Right. Thank you for those examples. And now you've been several years since you've been to Hannover. Some of the takeaways from talking to customer about this edge computing from the Dell perspective, perhaps through some of the partnerships that you've done, what are some of the key takeaways or lessons learned for you from the customers that visit you here in Hannover?
Great question. I mean, I think most customers who visited, they were really understood the Dell value proposition at the edge, right? They looked at some of the solutions that we have actually showcased as part of the demo, right? The lessons that we want to take away is we want to come out much stronger for Hannover next time, right? We want to really showcase how our hardware and our connectivity solutions really play as part of these use cases that we are demonstrating today. Right? Today we have the hardware that we have put together, folks who pass through, oh, we need that, or we look at this is impressive, this can be applicable to this type of use case. But next time we want to come to Hannover Messe to show how does that look like in the implementation of these use cases from the Dell infrastructure and connectivity standpoint of view. That is the major one that we are taking away from here, right? But also we understood a lot more use cases, applications, across not just the discrete industry that we are showcasing and some of the process examples, but mostly the process side of things. We didn't expect a lot of customers from process industry would be here, right? Because they have different trade shows, other things, but we realized that there is a significant customer base that came also from continuous process industry that they were asking questions they wanted to understand, from that standpoint of view. How do we integrate distributed control systems and, from an edge standpoint of view, how do we work with such systems and also get this dynamic analytics dashboards, advanced analytics dashboards, but also they talked about digital twins, which we feel that digital twins and AI/ML we need to come out a lot more in the next show because we have these aspects that we have demonstrated, but they might be a little bit on a discrete industry side. So we are going to come back to showcase some of those things as well from a compute and storage standpoint of view and how the solutions match.
Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Thanks for sharing more on that AI and ML, what you do. Perhaps we can continue this conversation back when we go back to our home offices. There's IoT World Manufacturing Days that we put together, so happy to have you back and sort of zero in on that AI ML, so go from the edge all the way into the cloud and process some of that AI.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.